Here we go. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Mo Show Live. You know, one of the great things that I really enjoy and is a big part of my life has been athletics and sports. And this time of the year is, man, it is sports phenomenon and frenzy, and we've got college football right in the meat of it with the Final Four coming up for the playoffs. College basketball is kicking off. So if you're a sports fan, now is a great time of the year to be, getting involved in sports and watching sports. And a lot of us grew up playing sports, playing athletics, being involved in extracurricular activities, and now a lot of us are fans. And, one of the things that I think sports is so great for, it teaches us so many life lessons, so many characteristics and traits that can really allow you to grow as a person and develop, and allows you to take those things that you learn in your athletic career and carry over into your adulthood and into your in our case, legal career, and into your work life. And so that's what today's show about. So I want to welcome everybody to the Mo Show Live, and I want to ask everybody to please like and share the show. We've got some great guests on the show today who are going to be sharing some great things about their athletic career and their legal careers. And I think a lot of people will enjoy today's show and today's topic. So please remind everybody to like and share the show. And if you're watching live, please make any comments. I'll be watching the feed and getting questions. I'll be glad to bring them up to our guest today. So I want to dive right into it because we've got such great guests. I want to let them take the lead on everything. And let me introduce you to our guest right now. Our first guest is Bernard Nomberg, and Bernard's also going to be my guest co-host today. And I really want to thank Bernard for taking the lead on helping me put this show together. Bernard, I really appreciate your help with that.
Morris, I'm so pleased that we've got this pulled together. This is going to be a fun show. I'm in Birmingham. Morris is up in Huntsville. Steve Ford is over in Tuscaloosa. We got Joel Caldwell down in Montgomery, and we may add one more who's also in Birmingham pretty soon. But Morris, thank you for pulling all this together. This is going to be a fun show.
I'm excited about it. And so just for a little bit about Bernard, Bernard is a partner at the Nomberg Law Firm in Birmingham. Bernard specializes in workers' compensation, Social Security, and personal injury cases. And Bernard is a graduate of Vanderbilt University, where he played quarterback for the Commodores.
Anchor down.
Our next guest is Steve Ford. Steve is a partner with the law firm of Lewis, Smith & Ford in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Steve specializes also in workers' compensation and mediation. Steve played defensive back for the University of Alabama from 1971 to 1974, and that's what I played for Coach Bryant. Steve, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you?
I am doing well, and thank you all for inviting me and participate. I really appreciate it. Look forward to the time together.
Well, thank you, Steve. We're looking forward to talking with you. And our final guest today is Joel Caldwell. Joel is an attorney with the law firm of Copeland, Franco, Screws, and Gills in Montgomery, Alabama. Joel's practices in the areas of civil litigation, estate litigation, insurance coverage litigation, and personal injury. Joel was a 4-year letterman and starter at Vanderbilt University and played safety and cornerback for the Doors. Joel, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Just very happy to be here. To reiterate what Bernard said, go Doors.
Well, guys, I'm just really tickled that you guys would take the time to be on the show today. And, I am super passionate and love college football. And I think that sports teaches us a lot of great things. And these guys all played major college SEC football, and now they all have very successful legal careers. And I think what we're going to hear today is there's going to be a lot of crossover in what they took from their successful athletic careers and in how it prepared them for a successful life in the legal profession. So the first thing,
before you get too far into this, you played college football, and I don't want to discount or forget about that. You need to tell folks about your experience.
Well, I was not an SEC college football player for many reasons. Height, speed, athletic ability, just to name a few. But I played small college football at Maryville College, loved my experience there, had wonderful 4 years there, and played with a lot of great guys and had a lot of great fun. And it certainly helped build a lot of characteristics and traits that I think have carried over into my legal career. So thank you, Bernard. But it's not about me; it's about you guys. So
go Scots.
And but I thought I would just kind of quickly, big picture, right? I mean, just real big picture. Just throw out this kind of basic question, which is the whole premise of the show today, which is, what do you think if you had one or two characteristics, Bernard, Steve, Joel, that you think you really developed as a college football player that have really carried over into your legal practice to help you be a successful lawyer? What would you say? And anybody, just jump in.
Well, there's one particular time or event that I remember. It was when we were freshmen. It's something Coach Bryant said. We were freshmen. Back then, freshmen did not play varsity. You had separate freshman teams, and freshman teams played each other. We were getting ready to go down and play Auburn. Our freshman team playing them, and Coach Griska was a freshman coach, but Coach Bryant got on the bus, and he talked to us about 5 minutes, and I don't remember what he said during that 5 minutes, but when he finished, we were all excited and ready to play. But at the end of that, he said, gentlemen, he pointed his finger and said, gentlemen, good luck. He went to get off the bus, came back on the bus and said, but remember, luck occurs when preparation meets opportunity. Now, I don't remember anything else he said, but that I'll never forget. And I've seen it happen in athletics. I've seen it happen in business. I've seen it happen in family. And I've always remembered that phrase. Luck a lot of times does occur when you're prepared, completely prepared to take advantage of an opportunity that presents itself. And I have never forgotten that. And I've, tried to apply it to everything I do. I've taught my kids that, and it's something that's just stuck with me. And I saw it happen in football a lot of times. One particular time, then I'll be quiet, let everybody else talk. But a ball, a football is a weird shape, and when it's on the ground and it's a fumble, it doesn't just bounce one particular way. It swirls around. There was one particular time the ball was on the ground, and the other team had 3 or 4 or 5 guys try to recover it, and our guy came in there and recovered in the midst of all that. And the thing was, I thought about it, we practice recovering fumbles almost every day. There's a technique of how to do it. Our guy did it right. Their guys didn't. Our guy made the play, and I thought about, that's an example of where that happened or where that was true. So just one thing that comes to mind.
Great points and great
lessons.
Thanks. Yeah. What do you think, Joel?
Well, I would say this. One big thing I think football's really showed me and taught me is how to relate to people. Once you start playing football, you're exposed in the locker room to people of all different backgrounds, all across the country, and you deal with people who have different upbringings from you. And I can say, like, being in the locker room with a lot of my teammates, even on the field, dealing with coaches, dealing with opposing teams, is that you have to be able to relate to people to be able to move the team to success. And I can see in law practice today, you have to deal with clients, other lawyers, judges that you may have different personalities from, different backgrounds, but being on the football team has helped me into practicing law because I'm able to relate to people and to deal with people. Most times, lawyers, we deal with them at their worst. Right. And being exposed at such a young level to that type of environment has helped me in talking to my clients, talking to other opposing attorneys, or even just talking to the judges or being in front of a jury.
Mm-hmm. That's great, Joel. I hadn't even really thought about that, but you have so many different personalities in the locker room, and you hear, if you listen to a lot of the ESPN or Fox Sports things, talk about all that. But I really do. I mean, you have a lot of different personalities, people coming from different backgrounds in a locker room, and I know in my law practice that's certainly true. So that's a great point. Hey, right now I want to introduce Kermit Kendrick for joining in. Kermit, good to see you. How are you doing?
Good to see everybody. All right.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. So just for everybody real quick, Kermit Kendrick is a partner with the law firm of Burr Foreman in Birmingham. His practice areas include consumer finance, litigation and compliance, insurance and transportation work. Kermit was a defensive back at the University of Alabama, a 4-year starter, and was a All-American in 1988. Kermit, thanks so much for joining us.
Man, this is a great idea. All right. And thank you all for having me.
Yeah, and so Kermit, what we were, as you were kind of joining in, I'd love to get your 2 cents. Steve and Joel both have added some great insight. But if you said, I was kind of, the premise behind the show is taking lessons that you learned and things that you developed as a college football player and how that has prepared you for a successful legal career. If you had one or two traits or things or that you thought, that's something that I really developed as a football player that has really helped me in my professional career. What would you say, just to answer kind of that question?
Just continuing to develop the persistence and perseverance. And I think I talked about this in the article. Sometimes the game doesn't go exactly as you prepared for. The game doesn't go exactly as you planned for, and it requires you to make adjustments. Litigation sometimes requires you to make adjustments as you go through the discovery process, and you learn facts. Your theories about how to defend a case will change, and you have to make adjustments. And so, learning how to keep going. Sports is a great tool for teaching young people how to keep going. In law school, sometimes when you read the statute the very first time, it makes no sense. You have to just keep reading on until it makes sense to you. Or the case, you don't understand some of those old cases from the early 1900s. You have to keep reading on to get the understanding, to get a grasp and understanding. And so, during my time in Alabama, we had to focus on learning how to keep persevering. And I think all football players, because you line up against other guys who have scholarships, they're good too. So you have to just keep playing, keep learning, keep reading, keep evolving. And that persistence is what I take with me every day into the practice of law.
There's no doubt about that. That is great insight in that, when we're in our legal professions, there's always hiccups, things change, things that you think are in your favor. The facts change somehow when you do further investigation, or there's a change in the law, or there's a different interpretation. And I certainly can see how that crossover from your perseverance as an athlete and the, how things may change in your game and maybe you have an injury or things, and how you learn how to push on and push through those kind of things. Bernard, what do you think?
Well, unlike our three other distinguished panelists here who had much on-field success, we got an All-American, we got a bowl winner, we got Steve who played for Coach Bryant. I was a scout team hero, and for 4 years I got to play the role of Kerwin Bell and Jeff Francis and all the great SEC quarterbacks. But what it taught me was, and it's a lesson that David, my brother, my business partner, and I have here at the firm that we call Keep Chopping Wood. Keep doing those things that that are going to make you successful. And nothing's ever handed to you. Nothing's ever easy. Playing on the scout team stunk. And you guys probably at one point or another for maybe a half a minute played on the scout teams. But that's where I was for 4 years. I knew I wasn't going pro. But my job was to be as good as I could be every day in practice. And I didn't have the skills of our top two quarterbacks each year, but I didn't keep me from keep trying to do my best each week and each day. And that's what we do here at the firm. Not every case is a winner, but you got to keep trying. You got to keep doing those things that make your clients pleased and happy to represent you. And that's a motto that we've always tried to live by. And that goes way back to my peewee playing football days. You may not be the best, but keep trying to do your best, and you'll get some success along the ways.
Yeah, guys, I don't know what happened to me, but I lost video.
Well, Kermit, we can see you perfectly fine. So if you want to just keep trucking blind without seeing us, I think we'll be fine, because we can see you fine.
We can hear you fine, Kermit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Bernard, I think those are great points, and that is something that I know that I have carried out through my legal career, is that if I will continue to work and I'm willing to put the effort and the time and the research in, while I'm certainly not the smartest lawyer out there by any stretch of the imagination, and not the best, advocate in front of maybe a judge or a jury, I've found that a lot of times, as you see in athletics and sports, that the people who are willing to put in the time and the effort, more times than not, are going to prevail. And I think that's true in our profession too, because you're going to get to the heart of issues and find facts and know things.
Yeah. You could be the smartest guy in the room, but may not be the most successful guy in the room either.
That's right. Hey, I want to thank a lot of the guys and gals that are watching right now. Nick Rishwain, Mitch Jackson, all the way out in California, Jim Hacking up in St. Louis, Chris Sigmund, and Lisa Wilson, and several others. Thanks so much, guys, for joining. And if you guys have got questions or comments, want to give a quick shout out, please, in the live feed here, make a comment and let us know you're watching, or let us know where you're watching from. And I'd love to give you a shout out. Guy Dean Martino, thank you for joining us.
Hey, guys.
One thing I was thinking about questions and things along what we've been talking about already. And one of the things that really occurred to me that I know is difficult for me in my practice is time management and work-life balance and doing. And I think I'd be interested to get your perspective on that. Having, I think, as a former, major college football player, having to do that at an early age, balancing your very rigorous academic schedule with your rigorous athletic schedule. And do you think there's some crossover, some traits or characteristics you learned there that have really helped you through your professional careers?
Let me ask a question that piggybacks on that. Joel, when you were playing, had the time limits per hour per week gone into effect at that time yet?
I believe they did, but did we stop at a certain time? I don't think that happened. But I can go to that, answer that question. I can say for me, when you just graduate from high school, you go straight to college. You don't have parents there to kind of tell you what to do. I think football helped me a lot because it kept me on a regimented schedule. And my motto is get it done as long as it takes. I made the mistake of trying to do pre-med route when I first got to Vanderbilt. And I had to go straight from the football field to stay up at study hall until like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I said, hey, if I have to get this done, I have to do it. And so one thing I said is, and translate to law practice, if I have to get it done, no matter what it takes, no matter how long I have to stay at the office, no matter if I have to come on the weekends, get it done until it's done. And so I think as far as time management goes, I try to keep myself on a strict schedule. But if let's say something comes in late that I need to respond to, or I have to meet with a client at a certain time, I just have to take the time to do that and just do the long hours. It's part of the practice.
Mm-hmm. Big sacrifice of time, that's for sure. You miss out
what do you
on
think?
a lot of it. Kermit and I played at about the same time in the late 80s. Steve was a little bit before us, and there were no time restrictions at that time that they have currently. But you're right, Joel. It doesn't mean that they necessarily follow any of those restrictions. I don't know how they're monitored.
Steve, what do you think? I mean, how do you think maybe having to balance that as an athlete and how that maybe transitioned into your legal career?
Oh, I think definitely it had an effect. When I was playing in the early 70s, we really didn't have any time restrictions. Spring training was 20 days, and we hit full speed every day, all 20 days, including the 8-day game. Meeting times were not limited. Practice wasn't limited. It was a full-time job, and then you had school. And so what it taught me is that if you don't plan, if you don't organize, then you're gonna come up missing somewhere. You've got to plan, you've got to organize, and then you've got to be able to change it. It has to be fluid enough. So if something happens, you've got to be able to switch gears and adjust to that when it happens. But that I took what I learned during that time. I absolutely took into my law practice. And starting out, I used to get up early and be at the office about 5:30 every morning just to get the day going and get it scheduled. And I felt like I was ahead of the game when I did that. And so that's where I learned to do that.
And I echo some of those same sentiments. All of us have been during the spring semester, and you're planning for the fall semester, and you go, I better not jam anything Tuesday afternoon. Tuesday afternoon has to be free, okay? I'm making fudge on a Monday, I'm making fudge on a Wednesday, but Tuesday afternoon had to be, we had to plan for the upcoming opponent, okay? So, I mean, it really, Steve, I want to just piggyback on what you said. It really taught me about planning.
Yeah.
And time management, and figuring out when I was going to need to be really involved in my classes, especially on Tuesdays when, I don't know if it's still that way, but that's usually a game planning day, and it's really a full pads day, and it's your longest day. Bernard, you were talking about the 20-hour rule. My class, my senior year in 1988 was the first year that came in, that you could only be on the field 20 years. And let's just say it was a struggle. Let's just say it was a struggle to meet that time limitation. But yeah, I would say time management is really the key, because when you're doing football, you don't need to think about your classes, and when you're doing classes, you don't need to think about football. So taking some time, whether it's 5:30 in the morning, whether it's 10:30 at night, dedicating some time to planning the next day is kind of what I learned at Alabama, and that I carry with me today.
What about you, Mo? What about your experience?
I agree. I agree. And what I found was so interesting for me is during the fall semester, I seemed to do better in my academics than I may have did in my spring when I had a little bit more free time. I found because we had practice and film study and everything else, I didn't have any time to fool around. I had to be so regimented to get what I needed to get done for my academic side and for prepping for Saturday and doing at Maryville that there was no time to dilly-dally on the academic side. And when I had a little more time in the spring, I usually would do the 5:30 a.m. workouts and I had a little bit more free time, and I found myself kind of putting off some of my things I'd prep and they needed to do. So I've always said that I usually did better in the fall than I did the spring.
Well, as Newt rightly said, the springtime was a little bit for beer drinking and necking.
Well, I also want to thank Don McClure and Mark Whitman and Nicola Booth for joining us, and anybody else. Again, if you're watching, you got any comments or questions, please chime in and let us know you're there. Another thing that when I was kind of thinking about today's show and doing is as athletes, you guys are ultra competitive. And that's true for most lawyers too. I mean, there's something instinctive in you that every time you step on that practice field and every time you step on the game field, and I'm sure anytime you're playing dominoes or gin with your kids or whoever, whatever you're playing card games, or I'm playing Uno with my son the other night, I want to win. And I'm curious is what do you think, the highs and lows of playing college football, winning, losing big games, winning big games, how that has impacted you in your legal profession when you win that big case or you lose that big case? How do you think that has, impacted, how you see and how you handle the highs and lows of your legal career based upon maybe how you experienced that as a college football player?
Well, nobody enjoys losing, regardless of what you're doing. Whether I'm playing racquetball against my brother or in a case against a rival, it's just human nature. Now, I haven't figured out how to do competitive yoga yet, but I'm sure those days are coming. But I'm sure everybody on this panel will agree. Every time you have a new case, every time you got something that just gets your competitive spirit up, that translates easily to your law practice. There's probably, you got rival lawyers that you always have in these other cases. And man, I just want to get him this time. And I'm sure that drives you to represent your clients even better.
I agree. I think so. Steve, Joel, what do you guys think?
Well, I was just, when you were talking about that and asking, I was thinking, I'm in my 40th year of practicing law, and I think one of the things that is I have more of a big picture now than I did when I was first starting out. Nobody, whether it's an athlete, attorney, or whatever, nobody's going to win them all and nobody's going to lose them all. You want to win them all, but you're not going to win them all. And so I think just keeping an eye on the big picture of knowing that I am going to do my best, whether it's on the field, whether it's in the courtroom or negotiating a case, I'm going to do my best and I'm going to get after it and I'm going to put everything out there. And if you come away a victor, that's great. And if you don't, you're going to learn something so you will the next time. I think about, who was it? Ted Williams. I think wasn't he considered the greatest hitter of all time, or one of the greatest hitters in baseball of all time? And you think about it, he only hit 4 out of 10. His average was 4. He only was successful 4 out of 10 times, and he's one of the best hitters ever in baseball. And so, I'm not going to win every time. I hate it. I hate losing. I want to learn something about it every time, but sometimes that helps us win the next one. So I kind of have a little different view of it than I did when I was just starting out, when I didn't want to lose anything.
And I'll pick back up what you said, Steve. I think, too, is to be steady and confident. Of course, as lawyers, we're very competitive by nature, type A personalities. You want to win everything, and you want to do what's best for your client. But when you do lose, I think the takeaway is that, hey, I'm still a competent attorney. Sometimes the facts don't work out with the law. I mean, this is part of it. But you're still confident, you're competent, and you're going to prepare for the next case. And you're going to be competent and confident enough to know, hey, I'm going to go into this next case, or the case after that, the case after that, and I'm still capable, I'm still credible, and my job is to do what's best for my client. No matter what the facts are, do what's best for my client. And so I think that translates just when you suffer a tough loss. I remember when my junior year, we beat Auburn. I think the next week we played Mississippi State and lost, but we still knew we were a good team. We still knew we had the talent to, go on and go to a bowl game. So the same thing in law practice is just, you may lose the case. It's part of it, but you got to make sure to be competent and confident enough to know for the next case, I'm going to make sure I do what's best for my client and potentially win the next one and the next one after that.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I would just kind of real quick, just what Steve and Joel said, that I think is kind of, film study of the case. I mean, in the sense of, looking back, I would try to, I went from, a funny story for me is we won the state championship my senior year, and my first game in college, I'm on the field second quarter, and we're getting beat worse than we've ever gotten beat in high school. I mean, it was a reality check 101. And, what I had to learn the first couple of years in my small college playing days was, did I do everything I could do? When I looked back at the film, where could I improve and do better? I can't control everything. Like, you can't control the facts, especially if you're doing defense work. For you guys that do defense work, you get assigned in a case. It's a little different than plaintiff's world, where I can kind of pick and choose some of my clients in cases. You get assigned a case, you've got to go out there and do the best job you can. And, where, as Steve kind of alluded to, where could I take and learn from my mistakes, or learn how I approached a certain technique, or how I handled a certain type of witness or investigation? How can I grow from that in the future for future cases? Kermit, I think you were going to chime in. Go ahead.
Well, Joel touched on it, Steve touched on it. Everything about what we do is about the preparation, okay? And sometimes, as you were talking about, Morris, the facts don't come to us neatly wrapped up. And sometimes we have horrible facts, okay? But sometimes during the discovery process, where the competitive nature comes in, you make an assumption that, okay, these are the facts that's bad for me. The other side is not perfect. There's some bad facts in there for them too. And maybe we don't win every time at trial, but if we get a reasonable settlement based on the bad facts there, that's a victory too. In law, sometimes we have to look at what do we consider a win.
That's right.
Sometimes a reasonable settlement is a win, okay? Depending on the facts that you're in. I just try to do my best to take great pride in the preparation. And if I do lose, I want to be able to understand why, and vice versa. If I win, I want to understand why. Because in either case, you have an opportunity to get better in the future.
Great insight, Kermit. Great insight. Real quick, I wanted to also thank Tom McClure and Tom Trush for joining us. Guys, we are getting close on about 30 minutes. And before we wrap up and let you go, I wanted to have a little fun and have just a couple of rapid fire questions that I thought the audience might have fun with, and just give your quick, short responses and do it. So what I was thinking, first question, a rapid fire question I had was, more nervous, your first jury trial or your first time on the field in a major game in SEC football?
Well, I'll take that one. Go ahead, Bernard.
First time
I
on
bet
the
I can
field.
answer for everybody on this panel. First jury trial.
I'd
Easy.
go the
Yeah.
other way.
Disagree.
First time on the field.
The first
On
time
the
I lined
field,
up
on the
against Bo
field.
Jackson, I've never been that nervous before.
On the field as well.
First time on the field is mine.
Wow.
Mine
That's
as well,
funny.
on the field.
That's really interesting to hear that the different perspectives, because I think I would say jury trial as well. And but that's, I'm playing in front of not near the crowds you guys are, but that's pretty interesting to hear that Joel and Kermit and Steve both said first time on the field.
Didn't that
Listen, when we played Auburn my freshman year, that was Bo Jackson's senior year. I very vividly remember praying, "Dear God, don't let him run over me in front of all these people." National TV, okay?
Well, Morris, in the courtroom, we didn't have a Bo Jackson to run over us. We just had a judge who could embarrass you in front of a jury.
Oh, that's awesome, Kermit. I love that. I really do. All right. Next rapid fire question, without naming names. Toughest, if you had to pick which one you'd rather not be in front of, the toughest coach or the toughest judge you've been in front of? Who scares you more, the toughest coach or the toughest judge you've ever been in front of?
Toughest coach.
Toughest coach as well. I gotta go with that as well.
Yeah, toughest coach, man. A judge can't make you run.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Judge
Exactly.
can only do so much.
Yeah.
I got a coach as well. That's right.
Now, one of the things I'd kind of like to end on, I thought it would be just kind of fun, and that is just, if you've got just, kind of your go-to memory or your go-to story or just a quick short story or a quick funny memory, similar to what Kermit just shared about his Bo Jackson story. I love that. That's hilarious. I'd love to see if you've got just quick roundtable with the four of you guys. If you've got some little, memory that really sticks out about your playing days or a funny quick story that you could share with the audience, I think that'd be a fun way to close out the show. Joel, I'll let you go first.
I got a good one. I'm gonna try to be as brief as possible. I remember my junior year as well. We was playing against the Florida Gators. It's after Tim Tebow actually won the Heisman, so they were beating us pretty good in our home stadium. And they had the Wild Gator where they had Percy Harvin under center. Tim Tebow was flexed out wide as a receiver. And one of my fellow DBs, he talked a little trash, which is it's normal in football play. And he was trying to talk to Tim Tebow like, "Hey, what you gonna do, Mr. Heisman? You gonna do anything out here today?" And Tim Tebow said, "I'm just blessed to be out here." I remember that was the quickest way to shut up trash talk I've ever seen in my life. He was like, "Hey," he took care of that. And so I still remember that to this day.
That's great. That was really great. Steve, what about you?
When you said that, what came to mind immediately is I'll try to be brief as well. It was a halftime of the VPI game, which VPI is Virginia Tech, was known as VPI. And this is the angriest Coach Bryant ever was in the 4 years I was there. We were beating them 42-6 at halftime. And we'd all, loosened up. We'd lost our edge. We come in at halftime, and he just lights us up. And everybody was sitting there with our mouth wide open. And it didn't dawn on me till later on what he was doing. He didn't care about that game. He cared about whether we were going to go forward or backward as a team. And if you lose your intensity, if you lose your focus, and you think you've got it won, you don't do things the way you should, then you're not going to get better. And he was thinking of, well, we had to play Tennessee and LSU and Auburn, and what were we going to do the second half? And he literally lit us up, and son of a gun, we beat him 77-6. And I mean, that really,
what did he say after the game?
Well, he didn't say anything. He was just smiling. But he made his point, and that is life is dynamic. You're either going forward or backward. And he didn't want us to go backward in that circumstance. And sure enough, and we learned something from it. So that's the thing that immediately came to mind when you said that.
That's great life characteristics and skills and things that certainly apply to what we've been talking about the whole show. Kermit, what about you? Anything else other than the Bo Jackson story?
Yeah, I mean, I remember very vividly playing Kentucky, and and they were beating us, and it's the fourth quarter, and I remember Derek Thomas breaking the huddle and just start screaming at the Kentucky guys, we are Alabama and we don't lose to Kentucky. And as those guys came to the huddle, broke the huddle and came to the ball, they started pointing to the sideline. And it just became contagious, at least with us on defense, that we just were not going to lose to Kentucky. They had just had their best day. They'd had all the fun that they were going to have. It was our time. And the lesson that I carried with me today from that is that you have to set a standard for yourself as to what you're not going to allow happen to you, okay? I'm not going to allow myself to show up in the courtroom and not be prepared. Doesn't mean I'm going to win, but I'm going to be prepared. And so it was kind of funny because we end up winning the game. And but I'll never forget how Derek got us all together, and we all start telling them we don't lose to Kentucky, and we end up winning the game.
What about you, Morris?
Well, a funny story that I just remember, we were playing a team up in Kentucky as well, and they had a preseason All-American defensive tackle, and I remember he was just wearing us out. And I remember our center came back to the huddle one play, and he said, he said, so-and-so just asked us if we had a weight room at our school. He is wearing me out. But no, we just had a ball, and that's one of the things that I really, miss is all that camaraderie and doing. And I think you guys, it's fun how I can see just the five of us just reminiscing and doing it without having even played together, have a bond there. And I really, I think some of the best friends that I still have are guys that were in my wedding and people that I stay in touch with, text messages are doing. And, I started this Mo Show Live, and I can tell you the first people to start giving me a hard time about this were all the guys I played football with. I was getting memes and texts and giving me a hard time, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And so Bernard, I'd like to let you kind of close out with any last thoughts or quick funny stories or memories.
I do. I want to share two quick stories. One's kind of somber. Most of you, I'm sure everybody remembers Chucky Mullins, a defensive back who played at Ole Miss in the late 80s. It was our game. It was their homecoming my sophomore year when Chucky got hurt. So that's always been a very vivid memory. That was on a third down. I held for extra points and field goals and was up close and personal when all that was happening. And that was just a very vivid memory that I've always will always recall. But to end on a funny, different story completely, we're playing Maryland. I think it was my sophomore, junior year at home. And I was standing on the sidelines with some of the other quarterbacks, and the quarterback for Maryland threw an out route. He overthrew the pass into our sidelines, and I happened to catch it. No big deal. Threw the ball back to the referee. They reset for the next play. Well, Maryland ran the exact same play, and what do you know? The ball was coming right to me again. Quarterback just made an errant throw, and I'm about to catch it, and from my right side, flashes across my face, is our head coach, Watson Brown. Now, Watson was a hometown hero. He was from Cookeville, Tennessee. He played quarterback at Vanderbilt. He is most known in the state of Tennessee for beating Alabama in '69 at home and has been a hometown hero ever since. And I think that and his offensive genius mind is why they brought him back to Vanderbilt. And I would happen to be his first quarterback recruit when he came back. Well, Watson dives in front of me and intercepts the pass on the sidelines. Now, when have you ever seen a coach do something like this? But it's not over. He gets up, he spikes the ball, gives me a big high five, and says, "You'll never show me up in my home stadium." And the crowd is going crazy. Now, we're getting killed, but the crowd goes crazy. And if anybody ever wants to see it, I've got that video. It's hysterical. But I'll never forget that. That was awesome.
Well, I want to thank all of you guys so much for taking times out of your busy schedule. I know you guys have a lot on your plates with the full legal practice and other things that you guys have got going on. And I want to remind everybody to please like and share the show. If you've got questions or comments or things, please put them in the comments. I will go back, guys. And if it's okay with you, I'll put a link to each of your bios on your attorney website. So if anybody wants to check out or get more information about you, then I'll just put that in the comments after the show. But it's been just a blast. I really appreciate it. And again, Bernard, I want to thank you for helping put all this together and setting this up for us. And guys, thank you so much. And I really appreciate it. And I think there are a lot of lessons that we all learn from our athletic careers that have really helped propel us to be successful in our legal careers and successful, probably in our family life as well. So thank you guys so much. You guys have a great rest of the day. Okay.
A lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.